This video is for how to software release doors within Sateon Advance. Please note that software releasing doors is not recommended for use in a life-saving emergency. In this tutorial, I will be giving the example of creating a software release of a couple of doors for use if the site has visitors and/or heavy traffic between those two doors. So, the first thing we're going to want to do is click on Access Control and Device Management, and we want to create an input. So this input is what is going to be used to activate the software releasing of the doors, or to trigger the software releasing of the doors. So to create a new input, we need to press the plus icon you can see top left, and once we've done that, this window will open. And then we would want to give a description. In this case, I'm just going to call it Key Switch 1 to software release doors. Okay, then we want to create an input group. Now I don't have any on my system, so I'm going to create one by pressing the plus or the add button here, and I'm going to give it a name. So in this case, I'm just going to call it input group and software release and press save. And then I need to select my controller. In this case, I'm going to use my multi-controller. And then I need to select the correct address. In my case, I'm going to use 408. I can then choose whether the input has 4-state supervision. So that just means, does it have end of line? And then I can choose whether it's normally open or normally closed. In my case, I'm just going to select normally open. Then I can give an activate description if I want, and I could also give a reset description if I want. So, in the activate description, if I just type key switch 1 activated, and then I can copy this text with Control C, and I can paste with Control V, and I can just put in here reset instead. And that's it. That's my input. So important to note, naturally we're creating an input to trigger the software releasing of the doors, but it's very important that you do create an input group. So you can see here I have created one. So I'm going to press save. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to go to Access Control, Action Group Management, and if I click here Input Groups, I can see the input group I've just created, the input group software release, and I can see the inputs within the input group, which is what I've just created. So what I now want to do is click on output groups, and I want to create an output group. And to do that, I just need to press the plus icon that you see here top left. And then I need to give the output group a description, which in my case, I'm just going to call software release. Of course, you can call that whatever you like. So once created, I'm just going to press save, and then I could create an action now in here. However, I'm going to go back to Access Control and Device Management, and I'm going to select Door, and then the output group I've just created, I'm going to put in either Unlock Output Group number 1 or Unlock Output Group number 2. So with the front door selected, and Unlock Output Group 1, I'm going to drop that down, and I'm going to select the output group I just created, Software Release. So I'm now going to press Save, and what I'm saying is that when the output group Software Release is activated, we want this door to be unlocked because this is the Unlock Output Group. So when Software Release is activated, this door unlocks. If I click on IT Door, both are blank, so the door will remain locked even if the output group is triggered. And on Office Door, again, when the output group's triggered, nothing's going to happen until I'd select from the drop-down box the output group software release and press save. And so what I've now said is when the software release output group is active, the Office Door will open, the IT Door won't, and the front door will, because you can see here the software release is in. So that's great. We've created an input and we've created an input group. We've created an output group and we've assigned that to the doors we want to unlock or software release as soon as the output group is activated. but we've got no link. So we haven't got anything at the moment that says when we want the output group to activate. So what we need to do is go back to access control and action group management and select actions. And that's why I made reference to it, because actually what you could do is just create the action before you go and assign the output groups to a door. So with actions selected, I'm going to press the plus icon top left to create a new one. And then I'm going to give it a description. In this case, I'm just going to call it software release. Of course, you can call that whatever you like. And then from system mode, I'm going to select general access. So it's important that you too select general access, because that's the mode we use for anything access related. And then the time schedule, you could put a time schedule in here. I'm just going to put all the time. But if I put core hours 10 to 12, 2 till 4, what I'm saying is that if the input and the input group was to activate outside of those hours, then nothing would happen. The software releasing of the doors just wouldn't take place. However, if I put all the time, whenever the input or the input group is activated, then that will activate the output group once I put the argument in here, and therefore software release the doors. So if I select all the time, and then from the input group, I want to select the input group that contains the input that is going to trigger the software releasing of the doors, which in my case is this one. And then in the output group, I want to select the output group I created and assign to the relevant doors that I want to software release. So I'll select this. And then I have the output period, and all I want to select is follows input, because what I'm saying is that the output period is going to follow the input period. So for as long as an input within this input group remains active, then the output group is going to remain active, and therefore the doors are going to be released or unlocked. And as soon as any or all of the inputs within the input group have been reset, and therefore the input group is reset, then the output group is going to be reset, because the output follows the input. So if I then press save, then let's just have at this point just a quick summary of exactly what it is we've done. Okay then, and in summary, what we did was we first created an input, and that input was what was going to trigger the software release of our door. We then created an input group, and we put the input that we created within the input group. Next, we created an output group, and then what we did with the output group was we assigned that to the doors that we wanted to release once the input had been activated. However, there's nothing there, there's no action, there's nothing in between the input and the output group. So what we then did was we created an action. And actually what we said for that action is that when the input group is triggered, so if any input within that specific input group is active or triggered, then the input group becomes triggered or active. What we then said within the action is that when the input group is active, we want the output group, which we selected, to become active as well. And actually, we want that to follow the input group. So as long as any input within an input group is active, the output group is active and the doors are released. And as soon as all of the inputs within the input group are reset, and therefore the input group isn't activated, then the output group's reset, so the doors lock. And what we could do if we wanted to was add more inputs and put them into the input group, or the same input group that's going to software release the doors. So then in this case, input 2 could become active, which activates the input group, which then activates the output group, which then software releases door 1 and door 2. Okay, so hopefully now that's better explained what we've done by creating our input group, our output group, and assigning it to doors, and then creating an action which says that when the input group's triggered, so is the output group, which releases the doors. Let's see it in action. Let's test it. So if I go to the control center, and by default the events tab is selected, so I'm now going to activate my input and we'll see that the doors unlock. Okay, so we can see that the input has been triggered here. Key switch 1 has been activated. So that was my activation description when I created the input. And then we can see that because of the action, the office door and the front door have been unlocked. And these doors will continue to stay unlocked until the input within the input group has been reset, and we'll reset that now. Okay, so we can see that the input was reset, and then we can see that the front door was locked and the office door was locked. And important to note just one more time that the software releasing of doors is not recommended for use in a life-saving emergency. And that is how you software release doors within Sateon Advance.